years ago, I found myself in the emergency room. I thought that I was absolutely about to have a heart attack.
I was like opening doors for interviews because now Amy was like one of the first magazines to be running in the country when we started. We can journey through this together because no one arrives. We just come to a place of mastery, and then there's always something else in our life that we're working on, and so we don't.
So, Queen, you have the power. You have the power to decide that you want to live a different life. Welcome to another episode of Empowering Queens TV. The purpose of Empowering Queens TV is to help women become more confident and to claim what's rightfully theirs. I'm your host, Duquesity Dean, and I'm privileged today to share this platform with two amazing, powerful women. Ladies, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure being here.
Can you introduce yourselves so that our viewing audience can have a better idea of who you are and what you do?
Okay, first of all, hi, my name is Patrice Lockhart. I'm CEO of Shaddai Health. And at Shaddai Health, our mission is simple, to help the people of this country achieve their good health goals. We do this through our products, services, and education. And as a result of what we do, our customers and our clients experience an upgrade in their health, and that is what drives me. And I'm loving every day of it.
Awesome. And you?
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Gertrude Holder. I am a family physician practicing here in New Providence. My passion is certainly family medicine because it allows me the opportunity to deliver a comprehensive, personal family medicine care to persons of all ages from different backgrounds. So I still have the passion for family medicine, so that's why I've been here for almost 20 years practicing family medicine. So thank you for having me on your show today.
Awesome. I just want to just first off say that you ladies are amazing. I've had the opportunity to interact with you on a personal level over the course of the last few years, and I'm so impressed by the work that you do with women and Dr. Holder in general, with families, helping them to become more healthy and whole.
Yes.
The truth is, it wasn't until I got older that I started to pay attention to my health. When I was younger, I ate whatever I wanted to eat.
Don't we all?
I slept whatever hours I felt like sleeping. Some nights I didn't sleep at all and got right up out the next day back into my routine. And so being young, health was just not a priority.
It was automatic.
But as I got older, I started to see symptoms of things that indicated to me that, you know what? You should pause and take a look at what your true health situation is. When I had my son, who was my last child, I experienced gestational diabetes. And my physician at that time indicated to me that chances are, once you have gestational diabetes, that diabetes would occur later in life, in full-blown disease. It disappears after the pregnancy, but it is a signal that it will reappear in the future. And even though my physician told me that, I still was not as careful as I should have been with my diet and my exercise. As we talk about health, what would you say are some of the more chronic challenges women face today from a health perspective?
Well, as you know, heart disease is like the number one killer in women. You know, a lot of persons are more concerned about other things like cancer maybe, and maybe HIV. They're concerned about those things and contracting those and suffering from those illnesses, which are very real and very prominent, but a lot of people ignore the fact that heart disease is actually the number one killer of women.
Wow.
Okay, and there are so many risk factors that lead to heart disease. Persons with diabetes, persons with high blood pressure. Those are all chronic illnesses that may eventually lead to heart disease, to stroke, to renal failure or kidney disease, and patients needing dialysis. So these are real These are real issues, and a lot of times they go ignored. For instance, you talked about having gestational diabetes, and certainly that is a risk factor for having diabetes later on. Some persons may gain 10 pounds after having giving birth to a baby, and there again, because they've now moved into an obesity category, the risk is even higher of developing diabetes.
Okay.
Yes.
Patrice?
Very much so. In my dealing with persons, and I get to deal with Bahamians on a daily basis, one of the things I do is wellness seminars. And one of the first things I ask the persons in the room, how many persons in this room have high blood pressure?
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the room in that seminar has high blood pressure, cholesterol, and sugar. But one of the things I draw attention to is that we have it. We know that this causes heart issues, and we die from it. It's one of the leading factors of death in this country. But how many of you are taking it seriously? And I am always amazed at the response I get in the room. Most of the persons have high blood pressure. This is what leads to death in our country. Yet when you ask them, what are you doing to be proactive about it? And there was silence.
Yes.
And that is one of my big concerns about our health in this country. I often say that the health of the nation is the wealth of the nation. The amount of monies we are spending, our Minister of Health last year stated that as a nation, we spend $800 million a year in healthcare in this Bahamas.
Wow.
Now we go around and say we're broke, we don't have monies, but do you know what we could do with $800 million?
I know what I could do with it.
If the
That is a lot of
Bahamas
money.
were to cut that in half,
Yes.
400 million. Do you know what we could do with that next 400 million?
Yes.
What we could do for the elderly,
Yes.
how we can educate our children, etc.
Yes.
But it is all about the awareness, not only the awareness, but getting people to become conscious enough to make the decision, to be disciplined,
Yes.
to do what's needed.
When we look at diabetes and high blood pressure as well as heart disease, I'm often hearing that those are like silent diseases. Those are diseases that if you don't look out for the symptoms, or if you don't know what the symptoms are, you can misread them. In our community, every ache you have is gas.
Yes.
And so, in your experience, Dr. Holder, do you find that people know more of the symptoms or know what to do and are doing it? Or what are some of the symptoms that we look at as gas or as heartburn, or we misdiagnose when it really could be connected to something that's more serious?
You said it right. Silent diseases. There was a Time magazine article several years ago that talked about hypertension being the silent killer. A lot of times patients are not aware that their blood pressure reading is high. They're totally unaware until they drop down with a stroke.
Wow.
Okay. Now we know classic symptoms of diabetes or hyperglycemia. That's when the blood sugar is extremely high. You're drinking a lot, so you're thirsty. You're urinating a lot. You're going to the bathroom so often. You're getting up 6-7 times during the night. Some people have, particularly in women, they may have vaginal yeast infections. Men may have infections down below in the genital area as well. So those may be some common symptoms of high blood sugar or hyperglycemia that patients may come to see you with. Sometimes there's dizziness, there's blurred vision. All of that is in that whole symptom list for diabetes or hyperglycemia. But oftentimes, patients with high blood pressure, they don't even have a clue. There are some instances when the blood pressure may be extremely high, and then they may experience headaches. Okay, and you often hear patients come in, "Oh, doc, my head is hurting, my blood pressure must be high." So, and some patients who know that they have high blood pressure, they can come in and tell you when they think their blood pressure is high. And sometimes they're right about it. But the point is that a lot of these diseases, they can go undetected.
Okay.
All right. And that's why they pose such a risk, because if they're there and they're doing damage to vital organs, then you present when organs are being affected.
Okay. So when we see symptoms like blurry vision or that frequent urination, getting up at night, if we're excessively thirsty, those are signals that we should see a physician. And the
Definitely.
headaches and those sorts of things.
Hmm.
Because you know we're pretty good at rationalizing.
Everything is
Yes,
gas.
yes.
When it isn't gas, I just need to lay down and put my foot up.
Oh,
Right?
Yes.
no, one of the
Oh, I'm
things
just
we
tired.
do know.
Yes.
Yes, we
Yes.
know self-diagnose. We're good at that
Yes.
self-diagnosing.
Or we go to the internet.
Yes,
And
Dr.
search it up.
Google.
Yes. And so when it comes to women's health, and certainly I didn't pay as much attention to it until I hit 40. Because at 40, I think that's the time when women experience a lot of changes, or they start to slow down, or they start to see, you're not so young, you don't have that quick bounce back so much, particularly if you're not physically active. And so it wasn't until I got much older that I started to pay attention to the things that I thought would damage my body, or taking care of illnesses as they came along. Because sometimes, because we balance so much, like we're moms, we're career women, we're involved in sororities and groups, and so we're running from place to place that we are our last priority.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so we get home tired, we go to bed,
Mhm.
and we tell ourselves that we have so much to do that a doctor's visit is not
Priority.
a priority,
Yes, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So how do we get women, because our show is focused on women,
Mhm.
how do we get women to change that mindset, to change the mindset of having, what should they do? How often should they get tested for certain silent diseases, or how often should they speak to someone about their wellness and creating a nutrition plan? What would your recommendation be for that?
Well, certainly, even as children, we start off by seeing our pediatrician. You go for an annual visit, and that really should continue into adulthood. I know when you're in your 20s, most people feel invincible. They feel they can conquer the world, so they
Yes.
don't really need to see a doctor because they don't have any illnesses. That's for older people. Okay? But really, when you talk about diseases like diabetes, the ADA, which is the American Diabetes Association, recommends that all persons, all adults, should really be screened. Well, anybody at any age should be screened for diabetes once they're overweight,
Okay.
because we see diabetes, type 2 diabetes, even in children,
Okay.
Yes, which
Okay.
is sad.
which
yeah.
is sad. So, again, you look at risk factors. If you're overweight, that's a risk factor. If you have a family, a first degree relative, we say, which is a mother, a father, a sister, or brother, who has diabetes, then you should be screened.
Okay.
Okay? If you are black, you should really be screened. Okay? If you are American Indian, you should be screened. Okay? If you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, you should be screened. Okay? If you've had gestational diabetes, you should be screened. Okay? So the ADA recommends that you should really screen most adults. There are some organizations who recommend screening between the ages of 40 and 75, but then again, you may miss some people. All right? So certainly getting screened for diabetes is on your list. The other thing is knowing what your blood pressure readings are. Like you said, women, we're so busy trying to take care of everybody, trying to conquer the world, trying to change so many things that you neglect
Yes.
your personal health. All right? So it's important for you to know your body, stay in tune with it, and if something is wrong, seek medical help. And you should always have your annual physical exam because it provides the opportunity for screening.
Okay. And so, Patrice, as you think about wellness and these chronic diseases, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, is there a correlation, in your opinion, between the food that we eat and the manifestation of certain diseases?
Most certainly, most certainly. One of the things, as Dr. Holder was speaking just now, as much as we know this information, the information you just said, we know it like the back of our hands.
That's right.
We know you should go get a mammogram,
Uh-huh.
go get this tested, that tested, go to the gynecologist, but we don't. And through the years dealing with persons, asking myself the question why. Very much like the question said, we end up being busy, but again, the thought comes to my mind, to thine own self be true. And I think when that consciousness is created in us, I tell women, I have been in seminars, had seminars where women brought their girls, where one of the things I teach our women in our seminars about reading labels and understanding the dangers of hidden toxins found in the foods we're eating. I tell the women that you are the one who go into the food store and you purchase the food and you feed your family. So educating yourself is so paramount. There are foods, unfortunately, that comes into our country as a third world country that should not be allowed. When I was doing my studies and understanding what Europe, there are foods that come into this country that Europe will not allow into their country, but it is allowed here. And when you look at the data and the research, when you look at what it's causing, then the correlation and the link with our foods, what we're eating, it has so much to do with what we are putting in our bodies. And one of the things I tell a lot of persons, and I know a lot of things has a lot to do with genetics, but so many times persons blame genetics that they're no longer responsible for what they're putting in their bodies. And I've had persons who've had issues where they've told me where this lawyer, one of my lawyer customers, she was in the hospital for a while. And again, because she was so much into her career, taking care of everything, she wasn't taking care of herself. Pressure, cholesterol, all of the regular things Bahamians have. And one of the things she said to me, she said, when I went and I had so much problems, but I had to stop eating. I didn't eat for a week. Something went wrong, and she didn't eat. And she said, you know what? Everything went to normal. But pressure, cholesterol, and I've had a number of customers who've been able to draw, and clients who've drawn the association. And until we understand, I constantly tell persons, forkful and spoonful at a time. We live in a day where we have to understand what we're putting in our mouths and what we're giving to our children. Because unfortunately, the foods that we're eating, the grades of food that we're eating nowadays compared to what was being produced 50, 60, 70 years is not the same. The wheat that you're eating is not the same. Even the rice, so much of the meat, what is happening now with our meat compared to when my mommy was growing up, when they in San Salvador, when they had their chicken, mommy said they killed their chicken. And I said, I don't know how you could be friends with the chicken and kill the chicken and eat the chicken, and the sheep and the goat. Right. So there is a difference. So it's up to each person now to become more conscious, but also knowledgeable.
Okay. So we're just coming out of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You know, the month of October is Breast Cancer Awareness, and we're now in the month of November. So just coming out of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We also know that cervical cancer is a silent killer for women as well. And sometimes there are no symptoms that are clear. How do we get women to understand the importance of that annual visit that also includes the pap smear? Because I think that's the way that we determine what's happening internally with our reproductive systems, right?
Well, the pap smear is very important because it, like you said, it detects cervical cancer, right? Now, just as you have breast cancer awareness, cervical cancer awareness, there's also a month for that, okay? And I think that is a push to get women to pay attention and go ahead and get your pap smear. The pap smear is actually a very effective screening test because in most instances, cervical cancer is a very slow-growing cancer. So you have the opportunity to detect it and to treat it and to cure it. Okay, so if you're getting an annual pap smear or getting the pap smear as is scheduled, then your chances of developing cervical cancer or having cervical cancer get the best of you is close to zero.
Okay. So at what age is it recommended for females to have their first pap smear?
When they become sexually active.
Okay.
Or the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists recommends the age of 21.
Okay. All right. And just continuing on the conversation of silent diseases, there are sometimes women who have other silent diseases, and I think you referred to the fact that there is HIV and there are STDs as well. How do we have women understand the importance of going and checking if they have odors, if they have discharge, and not try to drink moringa and hope it goes away, but to really get a proper diagnosis? I'm all for the natural, but how do we get them to know that it's responsible to go and get that check and to make sure that they take care of that?
Certainly, education is the key. And usually at an annual visit, we try to use that opportunity for education. Okay, and then they always fault me for asking too many questions. But if you don't really ask a question or look for anything, you never find it. So there is your chance to just go through, especially with a complete physical, you go through symptoms from head to toe. Okay, and a lot of times you'll be surprised as to what people may think to be normal. And then the other thing is there are some topics that are taboo that patients won't even discuss with you, and you have to bring it up. So you have to be comfortable enough to discuss certain issues with your patients. So I think being a family doctor, it gives me an advantage because I would have developed a relationship with most of my patients. And that relationship, that's really over time, as it develops, you get to know persons a bit more, and you can get into some topics that may seem taboo, and you get patients to deal with their health maintenance issues. So yes, I may not do a pap smear today, but when I see you in 2 weeks and we have another conversation, we may decide you're more comfortable and we can do your pap smear. So, we look for opportunities to have patient education so that patients are aware of what may be going on and what they need to do to maintain a healthy life.
It's just such a privilege for me to have you on the show today, Dr. Holder, because you are my personal physician. And one of the things that I believe makes it comfortable for me to share, because I think you know me better than I know myself, is the fact that you are open to the questions and you're open to asking more delving questions, because truly we've been trained to go to the doctor's office and to say these are the things that are hurting us and don't go any further. But we can help our doctors to diagnose some of our challenges if we're open and honest about what's happening, if we share our fears, if we really share the things that are happening. Because sometimes when we go in, we don't want the doctor to know it's as bad as it is. So we don't tell the whole story. So certainly that's one thing that I'm really appreciative of, the fact that you're not the type of doctor that says, I have 20 minutes for this patient, but that you actually take the time to sit with your patients, even if that means taking an hour, to get to know who they are, to get to know what's going on with them, even their mental and emotional state.
That's so important.
Which is extremely important. So as we wrap up this first portion of Empowering Queens TV, I just want to ask for your final words on how women can be more comfortable sharing what's going on with them from a health perspective, whether that's being overweight or whether that's having some of the symptoms that we talked about for those silent diseases or any other issues, to reach out to a professional. What would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be to reach out to someone you may feel comfortable with. In fact, one of the craziest things, just before you said that she was your physician, I sat here thinking, she's a female, I need to talk to her. Because I came from Grand Bahama, and so my physician is over there, but I have to deal with someone here. And just the fact that you talked about making people comfortable, that is one of the first things that need to happen. Because in order for me to expose myself to you, I need to feel comfortable with you. And just the fact that you were saying what you said made me feel, oh, maybe I could go to her. Because there has to be a level of comfort for me to open up to you, to tell you what's what I'm dealing with, and then for you to be able to probe where I am afraid to go into. So I think that's one of the things. Getting someone who you can become comfortable with.
Yes, certainly feeling comfortable with that person, and feeling comfortable enough to open up, to share. The thing is, you have to love what you do, I think, and just allowing patients, not rushing them, like you say, allowing them to share what's going on with them. Because when you're interacting with patients, they always come to you with an agenda.
Yes.
And as a physician, you're concerned about disease processes and what's going to happen and their health, but you have to now try to see the illness from their perspective.
Yes.
Okay, and that makes a difference, because you have to find out what's bothering them and how it's affecting them, and those are very important, because until you really deal with that, you're not going to be able to take care of them properly, because you may be concerned about something totally different that I'm concerned
Yes.
about, but I need to know what you're talking about and to know what your fears are and know what your concerns are, so that I can offer suggestions or we can negotiate plans to
Yes.
deal with that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So this has certainly been a stimulating first half, and this conversation has evoked a lot of more questions in me than I'd originally planned. I do know that the importance of being comfortable with your physician is super important, and having a physician that goes outside of the box to treat you is also very important, because I can vividly remember the day that my mom died. I remember Dr. Holder showing up at our house to assess my mental state and my emotional state, and to make sure that I was aware she was there if I needed her. And for me, that was outside of the box for a physician. And it also made me realize that she had a greater interest in my overall health, and I was just not a dollar figure to her. So she saw me as a person. So the importance of connecting with a physician that you can speak to openly and that you can trust cannot be overstated. Thank you so much for tuning into this portion of Empowering Queens TV. Stay tuned. We'll be back for our second portion of this exciting conversation shortly.